start at the beginning quickly and just go through about how you first got into DJing and music.
Oh, you want a potted history there? Well, basically, when I was about 14, I saw a pop group called the Sex Pistols, and maybe even going back earlier than that. No, earlier than that, a David Bowie LP called Pin-Ups. There's a picture of him on the back, and I was about 11, 12. I thought, yeah, this is the way forward. It's to dress weird and listen to strange music, and it was downhill from there on. Then the Sex Pistols. I couldn't make up my mind whether to be a soul boy or a punk. So I like the energy of the soul scene, but I also liked the look of the punk scene. So I used to turn up at Soul all dayers with peroxide hair and women's clothes and jelly bean sandals and get chased all over the place. And it's just the same now. I can't decide whether I'm a punk rocker or a soul boy, which is why I combine. That's why I got into DJing. I had indie guitar-based records, and I also had soul records, old dance records, and I'd combine the two. I DJ'd here and there for a number of years, but it wasn't until the Shum I got to meet Danny that it was the first time I've been to a club where you had a Smiths record and then you had a CC Rogers record, or a Cure record and then a 10 City record, and I thought, well, that's what I've got at home. I can do that, and I just got to know Danny for a party. I did a set and he liked what I played, and he gave me a chance to play at the Shum, and that was instead of starting at the bottom of the ladder, that's like starting halfway up. It's a real leg up. You could say you played at the Shum, the most important club in London at the time, and you were playing there. Even if it was once a month or once every 6 months, you could say you played there. And just took off from there. I was playing 90% indie rock or old stuff, for want of a much better word, Valeric things. And obviously the more gigs I got and the bigger the gigs became, I had to concentrate more on it got to sort of less and less indie stuff and more dance stuff, so therefore I had to get my mixing together, and just get technically better, and so it just happened from there really. That's it, just a basic from the age of about 11, 12, not wanting to know what I want, looking for an identity and thinking, fuck it, let's have about 10 identities and mix them all together, which is what I'm doing now. Any sort of remix work I do, it's well, why not have elements of everything in there, it's exactly the same.
What's your involvement with Boys Only?
Well, that was started 3 years ago by me, Steve Mays and Terry Farley. We were inspired by a Liverpool fanzine called The End, like a football fanzine, and we thought, well, let's do one in London. No one's doing it, but let's have more clubs in it, because we were going to clubs, like Terry and Steve were going to football, and I was going to clubs, and they were going to clubs as well, so let's combine the whole lot. And it took off from there, and I think it was just, when we first started, it was we got a lot of hassle from people didn't want to know, so they just thought we were a bunch of oiks, bunch of football thugs. But we just happened to fill a market. The less we went to football, and the more we went to clubs, the magazine changed, and it became more of a club magazine. And there wasn't a club magazine. There still isn't a decent club magazine, apart from ours, that reflects the real side of clubs. You've got magazines like Rave and things like that, but that's just mass market. That's nothing to do with what really goes on in London clubs. And we just, a lot of it is, at the moment, flavour of the month. And a lot of people that wouldn't talk to us or let us into their clubs 2 years ago are now phoning us up to DJ and have Boys Own nights. But that's just the way things go. And I think it came, with a lot of things, it's like luck. It just came at the right time. It's the right thing at the right time, there's nothing else like it. And people wanted it, so we still don't sell that many copies, but it gets seen, It's one of those magazines that one person buys and 10 people read. We always suggest to people they should leave it in their toilet, at home, just to let people read it, and it just snowballed from there. And now we're trying to just get some finance for our own record label. That's the next step forward, I think.
So what sort of stuff will that be releasing?
Well, basically for me and Farley and whoever to do our own stuff, but also to have bands on it. What we'd want to be ideally is have some major money behind us, but have total control. I know it's a bit idealistic, but I don't see why not. Just to do what we want. If we release one record a year, then that's what we release. If we release one record every week, we do that. I've got a million ideas, and I know Terry has, and it's just frustrating not being able to have the money to put them into action. And if that means compromising a bit with a big record company, then fair enough. As long as it gets done, it doesn't really matter.
So, It was the first mix you worked on the
Happy Mondays, yeah. But that,
How did that come about?
that came about because Terry had done Rope for Luck, and the EP came up, and so there was lots of talk about me doing one track, Danny Rampling doing another, Terry doing one, and Oki doing one. But then it was whittled down to 2 tracks, and I think Danny backed out. So Paul asked me to go in on one because he is he's got brilliant insight, but his knowledge of like indie stuff is not as good as it could be. So I assume that's why he got me into do it. Because I'd known about the Mondays. I had the first Monday single from like 3 years ago. I'd known about them before they were being played at the Future and things like that. So he got me and Terry in to do it, and it was like a really good advert. You know, your first remix goes out of the top 40 and then the remix brings it back into the top 20. It's like a really good advert. And since then, like, the phone hasn't stopped ringing, really. Some good offers, some really crap offers, you know, from really dingy bands, you know, obviously sort of trying to save, like, you know, let's do a dance record, you know. I won't name any names, just to get them into trouble, but some not very good bands at all, really.
So is that the work? I mean, do you want to do more and more of that?
Yeah, because so basically I've got a million ideas, and any way that I can inflict them on people. I inflict my taste on people, and that's why I got into DJing, because it's like, when I DJ, it's like, right, you bastards, listen to this record, you haven't heard this before, and you're going to like it, you know. And it's just a nice feeling to be able to do that, inflict your taste on like 1,000 people in a discotheque, you know, it's great. It's brilliant. I'm murder. When I get home, it's like, oh, come on everybody, I've just been DJing, it's like, I'll play you more records because you haven't heard this one yet, you know. It's just that sort of enthusiasm. I want to carry that through to remixing. Like, you know, show people that you can. Like, I've just done an Indian track for the West India Company, and it's got guitar samples from Metallica on it. Like, you know, there's all these people doing remixes, and they're all trying to sound American and safe, and like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, where is it written that you can't put a heavy metal guitar track over an Indian backing? It doesn't say it anywhere, and that's why a lot of these remixes are so mediocre, because their knowledge of music is just one-dimensional. It's like dance music, whereas I've got a knowledge of dance music and rock, and like, bring the two together. Why not? It works. That's the case of Primal Scream. Like I said to you, who would have thought? Someone said to you like 2 years ago that Primal Scream would be reviewed by James Hamilton, and he gave it quite a favourable review. You'd be laughed out of your office. But just anything with an edge, you know. I just like things with an edge, and like, mixing rock and dance gives rock that edge that sometimes it lacks, and it also gives dance an edge that sometimes it lacks.
So is that why you see yourself doing remixes, like doing like rock ones and introducing dance elements? Vice versa?
Yeah, whatever. I mean, like I said, I've done a dance one, the West India Company, and introduced slight rock elements, nothing over the top, but like, then I'm doing some rock stuff, hopefully with James, and I'm going to do the next That Petrol Emotion single, and you know, add dance influences to them, you know, but not go too far either way. It's no good trying to turn a sort of Petrol Emotion track into a house tune. It won't really work. You can still add, like, the Stone Roses, and it's like dragged out as the example, but that is like, that and the Primal Scream are the best examples I can think of like rock dance records, because they don't impose. The dance side doesn't impose on the rock side, and vice. You know, it's the best of both worlds, really.
Will all the things you do be as radical as the
I hope so, yeah.
Scream?
I hope so, yeah. But as I say, with the West India one, it's not so radical because it's more of a house tune, but it's radical. I was saying that it uses Metallica, it uses all sorts of silly samples, you know, voice samples. I think it's quite radical. That's just my basis for doing things. I get offered all sorts of things, but I only do things that I want to do, which I think I can, like. Basically, the whole point of doing a remix is so you can listen to something. I love it, listening to records and go, yeah, so and so made that record, or so and so produced that. You know, someone like Adrian Sherwood or even Ben the Band. You just know their sound. So that's what I want to work on, a sound where someone hears something and goes, oh, that's that. You know, it's got to be Weatherall, it can be no one else. And I've got that to a set with people that know me, and they hear Primal Scream, they go, yeah, that's very you. But like, anyone that doesn't know me, I haven't had time to develop my own sort of sound. It's only people that know me know that that's my sort of sound. I want to develop a sound which people say, oh yeah, that can only be him. There's just no point doing a remix. You might as well get the engineer to do it, you know.
How did you work with Paul on the Mondays?
Well, I mean,
is that the first time you've been into the studio?
Yeah. I mean, basically, what I had a million ideas rush around my head. All I did is I gathered all the influences on record. I just went in there with a bag load of records. Like the voice on it, like the monks chanting, was from a Music for Pleasure LP, The Joys of 16th Century Church Music. Because I've got all these records, I buy them, they're like 50 pence, they're all out there in second-hand shops to be used. And I just took a bag load of records and we tried some things, they didn't work, other things did work, and it just came together like that. And at the end of the day, I mean, like, it was like a lot of the technical side was Oki and a lot of the idea side was me, because I've never been into studio before, you know, and I'm still a bit like that. I mean, I know what I want things to sound like, but I wouldn't know a DX7 from a hole in the ground, you know what I mean, until I just say to the engineer, look, I want this sound, and let him get on with it. I don't care what he does, you know, as long as I get the sound that I want. And that's what it was like with Oki. His engineer was brilliant. I just went in there, told him what I wanted, and within like a quarter of an hour I was outside playing on the video machines because he'd sorted it all out. It was perfect.
So, how did the Primal Scream come back?
Well, that was basically, I'd seen the band around at various like parties last year. So I did some things in Brighton, and they live in Brighton, and I saw them round and about. And then I know their publicist, or their ex-publicist, Jeff Barrett. He gave me a copy of their LP, and I thought it was like a classic rock LP. It was real. I don't know. You could see where their influences are coming from. It was blatant. It was a blatant steal, a lot of it, but it didn't matter. It was like a really classic rock LP. So I phoned him up and told him how good I thought it was. And then about 2 days later, Helen Mead phoned me from the NME and said, "Could you write a review of them?" So I wrote a review for the NME and got to meet them properly. And just talking like you do, you know, we've got this "Do You Know Such and Such" track yet? Would you like to remix it? And I was like, very apprehensive at first, because the original was like a classic. It's like Hey Jude. Have you heard the original?
Yeah.
Hey Jude.
I haven't heard the album version.
Yeah. It's pretty similar, and it's like Hey Jude meets. And I thought, well, this is such a classic. Do they really need me sort of, you know, doing anything with it? But I went in. I did a mix with the vocals on it. It just didn't sound right, so I just totally destroyed it and came up with that. Was like it is now, and that was it. I mean, the fact that I'd seen them around at parties last year was the reason I did it. If they'd have just phoned me up and said, "Oh, we're Primal Scream, we want a dance record," I'd have told them to fuck off. Yeah. But because I'd seen them and I knew they enjoyed what I played and I knew where they were coming from, I did it. Which is the difference. A lot of these bands now phoning up. You know, I was reading last year, house music, acid house, all a load of shit, and now they want part of it. It just doesn't ring true. But with them, I knew they were part of it. They were interested in it, and they wanted to move on. And they put themselves right out on the limb, because it's going to really piss off their like fan base, and at the same time, all the new people that have bought Loaded or are going to buy Loaded, hopefully, might then go and buy the LP and go, "Oh dear, like, you know, what's going on here?" But it might work, you know. Hopefully it'll work. If people are open-minded enough to accept Loaded, they'll be open-minded enough to accept the LP. It's just like a classic rock LP. Yeah. And hopefully I'll be doing some more stuff with them in the future, because they I mean, primarily they're a rock band. You know, they are like archetypal rock band, but their roots, talking to them, they were telling me about records I've never heard of, like old Sly Stone tracks. Oh, yeah. The real essence of like funk rock, you know, like Sly Stone and Hendrix tracks, and the Meters, and yeah, and it was a bit new to me. I knew some of the tunes, but they obviously had like a real soulful bass to them. Like Andrew is from the band's like a Northern Soul freak, so I've been told. I haven't confronted him with him yet, but with the knowledge. But yeah, and so they've got, unlike some of these bands that do dance rock stuff, you know, like the Pop Elite itself and Jesus Jones, they haven't got that soul. No, all they do is that it's like, yeah, let's put a load of rock guitars over a beatbox, and it doesn't. There's no heart or soul there, you know. It's like they're missing the vital spark. But with Primal Scream, they've got that. It's the records I listen to when they go home are old Sly Stone records or whatever, or old soul records. So that's why it works, I think.
So how did you actually go about creating it then?
Well, I mean,
was that the first time? That's the first time you worked by yourself?
That's the first time I've done on my own. Yeah, as I say, it was a bit daunting. I knew it had to be really beefed up, and it was as simple as this. All I did was timed the records and found like the beats per minute. Then went through my record box and found any records I could with the same slow beats per minute. And the best one was the Soul to Soul. It's from the Edie Brickell bootleg. And I thought, yeah, excellent. I know it's a bit sort of like Soul to Soul rhythm, you've heard it all before. But then I thought, no, with all their stuff back over it, it'll make it really nice. It was as simple as that. Finding a rhythm that I could nick, which was the same speed as the record, as the track anyway, and it works. You know, if I'd have found if I didn't have Edie Brickell, I'd have used another rhythm, you know, and hopefully it would work. But that one just seemed to work. And it's nice. The first time I ever played it, the whole dance floor started doing the sort of woo-woo bit from Sympathy for the Devil over the top. And it never occurred to me that everyone that's heard it, so it's got that sort of Stones, bluesy sort of feel to it, which is nice. But always the way with like a lot of the best things done musically are an accident. You know, let's try this. Yeah, it might not work, but like, yeah, fuck it, let's give it a go. And they work, and it's a case of that. It's as simple as that. Just trying to find a groove that's the same speed as the record already, and lifting it, and that's what was done. And that's what the one I've just finished I did as well. Just found the record with a good feeling to it, and took their basic rhythm track and then built on it from there, just starting from the beginning. I don't know, that's the way I'm going to do things, so perhaps that's not the way you do it when you remix things. I don't know, but I don't know the rules. I don't know the technicalities. I wouldn't know how to, you know, program rhythm, so I do it from the easiest way possible. You know, I don't know how other people work. I really don't know. That's something you learn, isn't it, over the years. But it's just a bit daunting, the fact that the first two things I've done have been like relatively big successes. You know, the Mondays chart-wise, and Primal Scream like critical-wise. You know, and it's like, you know, fuck, I better do the next thing I do. Better be really good. You know, in case the novelty wears off people. So it's a bit daunting. It would probably been easier if like the first two records a bit of dive bomb, but I'd learned more. You know, I'd learned more technically. But because those two records came out really well, and I was really lazy about it, it's going to be difficult. You know, where do you go from here? Do you continue being lazy, or do you like learn the technicalities? I'm going to try and learn the technicalities, but I guess
they sound good because I'm not sure if they're one they've done a bit before.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes from a lack of knowing the rules. We don't know. Me and Farley don't know the rules, and to a certain extent, Oki doesn't. He probably does know them more than us, but tends to waive them. We don't know the rules. We just get in there and like bodge it together. It's the same with the magazine. We're the laziest bunch of bastards you'll ever meet. We're just bodgers, we're just chances, and we just sling things together and they work. But as I say, that, you know, 9 times out of 10 that's always the way. If you sit down for weeks and plan something, it sounds contrived. But if you just get in there and you don't really know what you're doing, it sounds fresher. So that's how it happens. I mean, probably shouldn't be saying all this. I should be giving you like technical ins and outs, but that's as simple as that. I don't know the technicalities. That's why I'm not an engineer. If I knew the technicalities, I'd be an engineer. I wouldn't be a remixer. You know? It's probably sacrilege to say it in something like Music Week that I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't. But I know what it's. I don't know the process. I know the end result. I don't know the recipe. You know, I've lost the recipe, but I've got the cake. You know what I mean? I know there it is. It's there. It's nice. It's tasty. But I don't know how the fuck it's made.
That's
can begin to tell you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's with a lot of people. They get bogged down by the rules. You can do this. You can't do this. And they're too influenced by America, basically. You know what goes on in America. I know it's important, and we wouldn't have house music. Blah blah blah. But you know, you then take that influence and make it into something. I mean, I'm obsessed with English things. You know, making an English sound for like the 90s, where someone, you know, like now you can pick up a record and it's Italian. You know, here come the jangly pianos and the un, dos, tres and the the Holloway sample. So why can't 1990 be like, oh yeah, that's got to be English because that's got a heavy guitar, or it's got, you know, whatever, you know, because it doesn't know the rules. So that's what I'm aiming for, as I said before, like a sound not only that's mine, that's English. You know, what's the point in trying to sound American? I know they've been important influence-wise, but England has been just as important. You know, like Depeche Mode records are like probably worth a fortune in Chicago. You know, so why not?
It's just been a snobbery in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, no, I don't think it is. It's not beginning to go at all. It's been gnawed away at. It's not going away by any means. You know, it isn't. There's still records I'd like to play, which I can't. Which are too rock orientated or too left field for like dance. You know, it's a slow process. There's records I'm playing now I could have never played last year or the year before. I mean, I've been threatened before. I've been playing and I've had people threaten me with violence. Like, what are you doing? You know, this is a house club. And go, well, no, this has got the same vibe. You know, they're playing English rock records in house clubs as well. You know, just get into it. And the same people are now, like a year later, pestering me to find out what these records were. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. You're threatening to kick my head in this time last year for playing this record. And now you desperately want to go out and buy it. Like, you know, that's the sort of attitude you're coming up against. But, like, it's a slow process, but it's getting there.
I mean, all the people I've interviewed in Chicago all into things like DAF and
Exactly, yeah.
Really obscure.
Yeah. You know, and people don't realise that over here. They think they have to, you know, that it's a whole attitude. It's, you know, America is great. You know, let's put our baseball caps on sideways and buy a big stussy jacket. You know, it's what do you want to look like that for? You know, what do you want to look like a b-boy for? You're like white and middle class and live in Kensington. You know, they're the archetypal sort of people. I shouldn't generalise, but it's that whole attitude that all things American, all things black, all things dance are great, and they're not. Like, you know, a lot of stuff, American dance stuff, is shit. It's just like, it's just disco music. It's what I would have called disco music like 10 years ago. You know, and it's not very good at all. There's no hard edge to it. And that hard edge is given to house by, like, as you say, by like rock influences, I think. I don't know, again, like, probably sacrilege to say it, but there it is. That's the way, you know, that's the way I see it. I've never been obsessed with America. I'm obsessed with America as a place and its influences and its characters, but its attitudes stink. The whole American thing, it just stinks, but it fascinates me at the same time, you know. But it's England for me every time, you know. But that's I like England. You know, it's London is the best place. London on a Friday or Saturday night can be the best place in the world if you're at the right place.
So do you only remix British stuff?
No. I mean, it's the thing I've done for the West India Company. Although it's a British track, it's going to be released in America first.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't at all. I'd love to give an American track an English feel to it. Love to, especially a dance track. No, I wouldn't. You know, basically, I'll remix anything that I like, anything that I think's right. Even if I think the track's not so good, but the band's attitude's good, so I'll do it. You know, but primarily the track's got to be good, and I've got to believe in what, you know. How can you put your heart into something you don't believe in if you're just doing it? If it's just a job, you might as well be sitting in an office if your heart's not in it. So anything that I think's from the band's heart, even if the track's not strong, then I'll do it, basically. American, English, German, whatever, you know, I don't mind, no barriers. Like I say, it's just a cross-fertilisation of ideas. Just because I don't like American attitudes doesn't mean to say I don't like some American music. Maybe I can inject an English attitude into it, I don't know, my sort of lazy, sloppy sort of attitude, you know, laid-back sort of English approach, I don't know.
So, coming back to the Primal Scream, all the samples and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the first sample, the voice is Peter Fonda from a film called The Wild Angels, and that was the band's suggestion.
Yeah.
They had the film, and they said, we've got this great sample, and then they played it to me, and I thought, what a way to start a record. I mean, it always goes down well. Even if people haven't heard the record, you're playing the club for the first time, you play that intro, the whole crowd goes shouting, yeah, right, yeah, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter what comes next. They're going to be in a vibe to have a party.
Yeah.
You know, they gave basically that sample was their idea, but where it was used was my idea, and I thought the only way to use it is in the intro, you know, and in breakdown bits. It's like the auto. It's been used before. A band called Mudhoney used it.
Yeah.
But it intros and it goes into some sort of like dirgy sort of, you know, thrash. Yeah. But it's just a rally. I like records that start like that, like a rallying call. As soon as they start, you know what it's going to be. Like with Aphrodisiac or I don't know, any record like that, Patty Day or things like that. As soon as it starts, so there's no beat going, you know exactly what's coming, and you pick up on the vibe of the crowd. The crowd go mad before the record's even started, which is what I want. Everything I do is to be like, it's that record. It's that record. What's that? It's, you know, that record that starts. And off they go before they even know what's coming, right? It's like, it's as if to say, like, here I am, it's, you know, like, now take this, you know what I mean, have some of this, this is me talking now, you know. Again, inflicting your taste on people, it's making them listen, it's like starting the record with a siren, it's like, come on now, you know, now down to the real stuff, you know, forget all that you've just heard, now this is the gear. But simple as that, and all the stuff, the only other sample on it is the, I Don't Want to Lose Your Love, which is like, I don't know, I'm in an Ask Norman Jail saying what that's from, I really don't know, it's from one of them sort of DJ a cappella records, and the track was called I'm Losing More Than I've Ever Had originally, and I just thought, yeah, that fits it perfectly. But all the brass, all the strings, everything is from the original track. You know, and I just knobbed the song off because it didn't fit. Bobby's voice wasn't soulful enough to go against like those sort of gospel vocals on the field, so we just lost his voice. He didn't mind at all. You know? So, in fact, I think he wanted his voice off from day one. But like I say, that's why I remixed it as well, was because all the elements were there. When you listen to it, it's got a brilliant like conga line all the way through it. I thought, yeah, you can do something with that. And the brass and the strings, yeah, I mean, if you've got all the elements, you know, it's easy to do something. It's just coming up with the right groove for it. And that's the only samples are Peter Fonda and the old soul track, which I don't even know what it is. You know, like, call me a Philistine or Philistine or whatever. I should know, but I don't know. Phone up Norman James, see what he says, see if he knows what it is. That's the only sample. You know, all the elements were there. Yeah. I like that review. It was quite nice. It picked up on the film. I never thought like a country meets Stax. I thought it was quite nice. I thought it was quite good.
Building the sax.
Like I say, all the elements were there, and I'm quite surprised that he gave it. You know, not a blinding review, but I thought it was the sort of thing that he would slay. Because I remember.
It's just nice that you used to dance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Stuck to the sidelines. I remember once. I remember when Your Love was getting big again, and me and Danny and Terry and like Steve Proctor have been playing this William Orbit tune, Fire and Mercy, and James Hamilton wrote about Your Love. This is too. I've had, you know, like, it's been out for ages. This record is being played by the sort of DJ that plays William Orbit records. And what the fuck does that mean? You know, does it? You know, from my point of view, that means forward-thinking DJs with no barriers. But to him, that was like a piss, you know, a slag off. Which is what I thought this record would be. Oh, like another band. He probably, if he saw a picture of the band, he'd probably like have a heart attack and slag it off. Like, you know, crushed velvet trousers.
He mentioned that, did he? I mean, he didn't even mention
No, he didn't. He obviously didn't know. No, he's probably got sent a one-sided white label and like thought, oh, this is, you know, like he likened it to Depth Charge. He probably thought it was a bunch of sort of like B-boys in Brixton or something, or Notting Hill doing it, which is fine by me. I don't mind. At least that shows that you know he's admitted he's liked it. There's no going back now. There's no. I might send a photo of the band to him, like autograph photo, and then see what he says. But he's, you know, it just shows you what preconceptions people have about things. You know, because he had no picture and no information, he just had to listen to it on its merits, and it's out of context with anything else the band had done. And he liked it, which is fair enough. This is the way I judge records. I'll play anything. It doesn't matter what the band have done before or what they look like, or you know, as long as their politics aren't dodgy. You know, as long as there's no sexism or racism in the lyrics or too much swearing, then I'll play it. And I think that's where he's come from, because he hasn't had any preconceptions. He hasn't seen the band or anything about it.
It's going to be a 7-inch film.
All it is like it's like the mix, but with a chunk off the end taken off the end. As simple as that, it just fades out earlier. You know, I don't know. Hopefully, it'll be played on the radio. I know Gary Corrali's expressing interest, but I don't know. Hopefully, it will. I mean, it is that different that hopefully it will attract some sort of radio attention. It would be nice. It'd be even nicer if it got in the top 75 or the top 50, but you know, we'll see.
Might do.
Yeah, we'll see. It depends how it gets picked up. I mean, it's been picked up on by London club people, which is all well and good. It's all very nice, but that doesn't mean to say it's going to sell many records. Because most of those London club people have like Ponce free ones anyway, so it doesn't matter. And also, what is not the real judge, the real test is whether it goes down in Manchester. Basically, if a record's big in Manchester and London, it's going to sell a lot. If Manchester fuck it off, or if London fuck it off, then it's going to not do so well. And rumour has it that the Happy Mondays manager has been playing it in the dry bar, and that it's going down really well. And people are going into Eastern Bloc who haven't even heard the records and asking for it, which is nice. Whether it'll be played in the Hacienda is another thing. I doubt it, because the Hacienda ends at 2 o'clock, and it's no good playing that sort of record at like 1:30, 1:45, when everyone's like rushing off their face and wanting to hear house music. I don't know where it'll be played in Manchester. Hopefully the clubs will start springing up which play that sort of thing, but we'll see. We shall see.
I did play it a couple of times at the Africa Centre on Saturday.
Yeah. I would say I thought that was the worst deal, but I left at 12. I was like, couldn't get a drink. and was being hassled left, right, and centre. I was trying to sort out. They were supposed to be filming a video for it, and I was getting grief. I just like went home. Basically, I didn't think it was very good at all. But it's nice. It's nice to be walking around the dance floor when your record's playing, especially when half the people in there don't even know who you are. You know what I mean? And you're walking around and they're all giving it plenty, and you know they probably look at you and think, "Oh, who's that wanker? What's he doing in here?" And you think, "Nah, you know, you're dancing to our record." So it's great. That's why, like, I did an interview with the NME, and it's like, didn't want any photographs, or I don't want to appear in ID. I don't want to be, you know, because it's nice to remain anonymous. Because then people, like I say, it's preconceptions again. If people know you, if you're up front and you're every time you're out in the magazine, you're in there. People are gonna people might hate you just because you're that, because they think, oh, look at him, like, who does he think he is, like getting his boat around everywhere, and they're gonna dislike your records, or they might look at you and go, look at that long-haired wanker, like, you know, what does he know about anything? It looks like you know, like a Metallica roadie or something. And by keeping in the background, it's good because your preconceptions people have, well, they can't build any because they don't know who you are, you know, which is what I like. It's nothing like the feeling of walking on the dance floor and like people looking at you, looking you up and down, just to say, who are you? And at the same time they're dancing to a record you've done. It's brilliant. It's no feeling like it.